I want to bring in now Jeff Berardelli. He's a CBS News meteorologist and climate specialist. Jeff, what's the latest on Hurricane Ida's path?
So the path is somewhat unchanged, but the intensity is now really starting to pick up, and you'll be able to see exactly why right now, because you can see that the eye had been clouded over for quite a while, but look, it's emerging. So right now is when it's really going to start to intensify, and it's going to happen fast. Today, tonight, through today, tomorrow, until it makes landfall, we're going to be seeing this intensify because it's moving over extraordinarily warm waters. This is the official forecast track from the National Hurricane Center. A Cat 4 making landfall tomorrow, late in the afternoon, early in the evening. That means it has another somewhere between 24 and 30-ish hours or so to continue to intensify. So it's likely to get very strong. Earlier today, National Hurricane Center had a max intensity of 140. Now it's down to 130, but I wouldn't be so sure about that. This system certainly has the capacity to get as strong as it wants to. The only limiting factor is time, because eventually it will hit land, and that's at least some good news. But it's going to move over the hottest water in the Gulf of Mexico. That's the loop current right there. That will really intensify it. And then it's going to move over the highest surface water in the Gulf of Mexico, which is right near the north coast, so right near the Louisiana coast. Water temperatures are around 90 degrees, so that's what we're most concerned about. And we think it's going to rapidly intensify. What does that mean? Well, that's a wind speed increase by definition of 35 miles an hour in 24 hours. And most major hurricanes, in fact, do rapidly intensify. We've seen this increase 5 miles an hour per decade for the past 4 decades because of human-caused climate change, because ocean temperatures in the Atlantic Ocean right now about 2 degrees warmer than they used to be. So we're getting used to seeing rapid intensification, and this system is certainly going to do that.
Well, Jeff, what are the worst impacts that we're likely going to see from the hurricane?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of hazards with this. It's hard to pick one as being the worst. Certainly the wind first. Let's talk about that, because as this comes on shore, look at how classic the shape is. You can see the eye. You can see the eye wall. There we are in the morning with winds gusting to about hurricane force in Grand Isle. Then as we head to around noontime, notice those winds start gusting over 100 miles an hour along the coast. And look at that, over 130 miles an hour at times. Now in New Orleans looks like they're going to be on the northeast fringe of the hurricane force wind, so there'll be some gusts to 75, 80, but the worst of it right now looks like it's going to head to the west. And you can see it making landfall during the late afternoon, early evening, and then it will begin to weaken. But because it is strengthening at landfall, it has upward momentum in terms of its winds, it takes a while for it to start decreasing intensity. So this system is going to produce damage well inland. Just remember that. This is going to be a bit like a buzzsaw. Because of how strong the winds are. Now, in terms of the storm surge, 10 to 15 feet is likely in the corridor of the strongest winds and the strongest onshore push, about 7 to 11 feet to the east of New Orleans, which is catastrophic storm surge. It's going to be deadly. And then on top of that, we've seen about 2 to 2.5 times the amount of rain that we would normally see the last 90 days in places like Mississippi and Louisiana. We're going to pile another at least foot, some places 15 to 20 inches on top of that. And, there's no way the ground can absorb all of that. It's going to run off and cause a lot of flash flooding, very dangerous flash flooding.
Well, Jeff, devastating doesn't even begin to encompass how horrific the impacts were of Hurricane Katrina on Louisiana. And as we discussed last, Hurricane Ida is currently expected to be even stronger. Tell us more about how these two storms will compare.
So what's so important about this is not the actual number, how strong the winds are. Is it a strengthening storm at landfall? So does it have upward strengthening momentum? Or is it weakening at landfall, in which case it's already weakening, so as soon as it hits land, it just falls off a cliff. The intensity is not nearly as bad. So it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, because we believe Ida is going to be a strengthening storm at landfall with winds of 130 or 140 miles an hour. Katrina had winds of 125. Barely. It was a weakening storm, so the winds dropped off really fast. So the winds will likely be stronger. We're going to see more catastrophic wind damage from Ida. However, Katrina, when it came on shore, it had been out in the Gulf for 2-3 days. It was building up a mountain of water. And when it came on shore, it just pushed all that water on shore. We ended up with 28 feet of storm surge, a record for the United States. However, this storm is going to have very high storm surge. It's not going to be as high. So about 15 feet of storm surge expected with this. Still very deadly, but the storm surge is not going to be as bad. So it shouldn't be as impactful as Katrina was. but it's still a very dangerous system. And the bottom line here is you have just a few more hours to prepare. By tomorrow, it's going to be too dangerous to do anything in the morning. Have your supplies, have your plan, talk to your family, and just hunker down, or if you're told to evacuate, evacuate.
Don't risk it. All right, Jeff, thank you.
You're welcome.